To this now, South Africa requires 390 billion rand, including expanding new transmission lines by 1,400 kilometers each year in order to connect renewable energy sources to the national grid. South African Independent Power Producers Association chairperson Brian Day says the current progress is insufficient to shield households from load shedding. Business reporter, or business editor rather, Xolani Mbanjwa has more from the Renewable Energy Seminar, which took place in Johannesburg today.
It's been 7 months since load shedding was suspended, and the renewable energy sector says the industry's contribution has been overlooked.
Any notion that renewable energy hasn't played a significant role in the electricity landscape in South Africa is simply false. Over the last 13 years of the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producers Program, you've had about just over 7,000 megawatts between the various rounds that are actually now feeding power into the national grid. If you translate that into the stages that South Africans we've all become so familiar with in terms of Eskom's load shedding schedules, you can already see that just that 7,000 megawatts has had the ability to reduce or remove at least 2 to 3 stages of load shedding.
But with South Africa still in the clutches of energy poverty amid government's plans to phase out 12 gigawatts of coal plants and add 18 gigawatts of new wind and solar power by 2030, the renewables industry is in a frenzied search for funding to connect the sector to the grid. The South African Independent Power Producers Association says any delays will have consequences.
It doesn't get connected, and you and I don't receive the electrons in our house or in our business. So there's over 130 gigawatts of projects being developed. So on the project development side, on the generation side, there are enough projects. We need the transmission grid to connect them to the grid and bring them to the customer.
Electricity and Energy Minister Dr. Newzroom, however, wants the industry to move with speed in implementing projects, as it takes up to 18 months for renewable energy companies to move from winning government's bids to commercial close.
So the question we're asking is how best can we ensure that this process is accelerated. So we want to understand what has been the structural constraints that have been undermining our ability to onboard renewables at the speed that is required. We make an excellent point. One of the major constraints that we have identified is grid capacity, because there is a asymmetry or misalignment where these renewable resources are. Their optimal resources are locations for PV is in the Northern Cape, for wind is the Cape Provinces, the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape.
Ramokgopa added that he will be addressing the cabinet soon to find an alternative to the application by the National Energy Regulator of South Africa for a 36% electricity tariff hike.
The proposed tariff is untenable, unaffordable. It's going to put people deeper into energy poverty. It's going to force low-income households to make choices whether we replenish our electricity units or we buy food. It's going to make industry uncompetitive. That's the one side. On the other side, Eskom needs the money to invest in the resurgence of the performance of these units. There's money that is required for them to invest there. So I think you can balance the two.
It's been more than a decade since the government procured 513 megawatts of renewable energy in bid window 1, and since then 272 billion rands has been invested into the sector. South Africa's race to an energy mix that supports economic needs will largely be determined by how fast renewables can be connected to the grid. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Xolani Mbanjwa in Johannesburg.